Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on your body's secret language. It's this incredible system of invisible chemical messengers that, well, it pretty much runs everything. So let's get into it.
I mean, really think about that for a second. It's this unbelievably complex operation, running 24/7, and you never have to consciously tell it what to do. So what's the secret? How does your brain tell your stomach to digest or your muscles to grow?
Well, the answer is hormones. These things are basically the body's dedicated couriers. They're released by glands, sent out on missions through your bloodstream, and they deliver very specific instructions. This is the invisible network that keeps your entire system in sync.
And when I say they control a lot, I mean a lot. From the energy you get out of your food, to how you handle a stressful day, to your sleep cycles, and yeah, even your moods, hormones are the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Okay, but to really get how they work, you gotta know that not all these messages are written in the same language. Hormones can be grouped into these distinct families, and each one has its own unique way of communicating.
Right. Just like you'd send a quick text for something urgent and maybe an email for something more detailed, your body uses different kinds of hormones for different jobs. And they're all grouped into these families based on what they're made of.
So let's break this down. First up, you've got your peptide hormones, like insulin, which are built from chains of amino acids. Then, there are the amine hormones, like adrenaline. They're simpler, derived from just a single amino acid. And finally, you have steroid hormones, like testosterone, which are really unique because they're built from a fat molecule, cholesterol. And this isn't just a fun fact. As you are about to see, their structure completely changes how they deliver their message.
Okay, so we know there are different types of messages. But how are they actually made in the first place? And how do they get sent out to do their job?
To see this in action, let's follow the assembly line for one of the most famous hormones out there, adrenaline. You know, the fight-or-flight hormone. It's a perfect example of how this whole biological manufacturing process works.
So it all starts with a simple amino acid called tyrosine. From there, through a series of really precise chemical tweaks, it gets turned into L-dopa, then into dopamine. Yep, the same stuff involved in pleasure and motivation, which is then converted to norepinephrine, and finally into its final form, adrenaline. A single, simple building block becomes this incredibly powerful emergency signal in just a few quick steps.
All right, the message is bottled and ready to go. Now, how does it actually get delivered? Turns out the body has 3 different postal services, and it all depends on how far the message needs to travel.
The one you're probably most familiar with is endocrine signaling. Think of this like a national broadcast. A hormone like insulin gets released into the blood to reach the entire body. Then you've got paracrine, which is more like passing a note to your neighbor. The hormone only affects cells that are right next door. And finally, there's autocrine signaling. This is basically like leaving a sticky note for yourself. The cell releases a hormone that talks right back to it.
Now, a message is totally useless if no one can actually read it. So how does a target cell know that a specific hormone is meant for it and not some other cell? This is where it gets really clever.
See, every target cell has these special proteins called receptors. You can think of them like a molecular mailbox, or even better, like a lock. A hormone can only deliver its message if it's the perfect key for that specific lock. This is what ensures insulin only talks to cells that manage blood sugar, and not, your eyeballs. It's all about specificity.
So where is this lock located? Well, for those protein and amine hormones we talked about, the lock is on the outside surface of the cell. They dock there, and that action triggers a signal inside. But for the steroid hormones, the ones made from fat, they can actually slip right through the cell's outer layer and find their lock inside the cell. They often go straight to the nucleus to directly tell your DNA what to do. It's a much more direct line of communication.
So with all these millions of messages flying around all the time, you'd think it would be total chaos. But the body has this brilliant command and control structure to keep everything running like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, nothing in this system happens by accident. The whole thing is managed by this strict, top-down hierarchy. It's almost like a corporate chain of command, and it makes sure hormones are only released when they're needed and in just the right amount. And this flow here shows it perfectly. It all starts in the brain, with the hypothalamus acting like the CEO. It sends an order to the pituitary gland, which is kind of like the general manager. The pituitary then tells a specific factory, say the adrenal gland, to get to work. And that gland produces and releases the final hormone to get the job done.
But this chain of command does something else that is absolutely incredible. It doesn't just pass along a message. At every single step, it makes that message exponentially louder.
This whole process is called a hormonal cascade. A tiny, tiny whisper of a signal from the brain can trigger a slightly larger response from the pituitary, which in turn triggers a massive shouting response from the final gland. It's a biological amplifier.
And how big of an amplifier are we talking about? A single tiny signal from the brain can get blown up by 1,000 times or even more by the time it reaches its target. This is how just the thought of danger can flood your entire body with adrenaline in a matter of seconds. It's incredibly powerful.
So, after all that, the chemistry, the delivery systems, the chain of command, what's the big takeaway? Why does any of this intricate biochemistry actually matter to you?
It matters because this system is, quite literally, the silent conductor of your internal orchestra. It's what directs thousands of different instruments, your organs, your tissues, your cells, to all play in perfect harmony, creating the symphony that is you, living your life from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep.
I mean, there's almost no part of your physical or even your mental experience that hormones don't touch. Digestion, metabolism, sleep, stress, growth, reproduction, and mood, they are the fundamental regulators of who you are at a biological level.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? If so much of our mood, our reactions, and our very development is scripted by these invisible chemical messengers, it really makes you wonder about the line between our biology and our sense of self.